Hello and welcome to this video about secret agents behind massacres, shootings, suicide murders, bus, plane crashes, etc. With communication snooping. This is video number 2, and I'm going to talk about how communication snooping causes deaths of key good people and destruction of health, spirit and life on our planet. And before I begin this video too, I'm going to provide a quick overview of strange coincidence, murders, massacres, which I described in my previous video, which was called Anti-Buteyko and Anti-Health Conspiracy by Two Tiers of Secret Agents and Safety Suggestions. Now, this video is going to be actually extension. I'm going to provide more cases. But first, again, I'm going to shortly overview video number 1. So first of all, in part 1, I divided the previous video on 8 or 9 parts. Part 1 was about verifiable cases of conspiracies, where I provided many kind of word situations related to the Buteyko method, to clinical trials, to COVID coverage in Singapore. And that was part 1. In part 2, I described how conspiracies of secret agents started with me, because in 91, 92, many years ago, I had KGB experience due to my work as a research scientist, as a postdoctoral fellow in Finland, in foreign country. It actually was a Western country, and it was still Soviet times. So you can imagine I got some training even from KGB people who wanted me to spy. So I explained this situation because it allowed me to know kind of a little bit more than the average person about how secret agents function and how KGB function. Now then, in part 3, I provided many cases of Buteyko-related crimes in my life, when I do something and something happened, people killed, sometimes 3, 5, 10 people, more people could die due to some plane crashes, bus crashes, shootings, and it's hard to kind of get a picture unless you have many crimes like this. And that's the reason actually why today in this video I'm going to provide more verifiable cases and some cases less verifiable, just you may trust my word if you wish to. So and that was starting from 2006, first kind of cases which I had in this part 3 of the previous video. I had again Buteyko method promotion, my teaching of the Buteyko method, a lot of videos teaching specific students, practitioners, how these cases related to these events in my life. So somebody looked like was snooping, stealing information, my private emails, my Skype or Zoom conversations with students or practitioners, training of these people, training of assistants, and then organized crimes related to these events. Now, I also described in part 4 in the previous video who else are targeted by these people, because I discovered that there was a severe oppression of people who teach and promote and use new decision therapy developed by Candice Blackley, PKD, paleomedicine, Paleolithic ketogenic diet, people who promote and teach IHHT, intermittent hypoxic training, people who teach Frolov device, and even better leaders of movements such as, for example, President Barack Obama, because at the top of his popularity, as I again described in the previous video, there were events like going on. For example, he visited Mexico City and he shook a hand to one director of some anthropological museum, and 2 or 3 days later this man died from some unknown causes. And at the same time, when Obama came to this Mexico City, hundreds of, I think thousands of people actually died from swine flu. It was a big infection in Mexico, which later started in the United States, and it did not become as bad pandemic as we have right now with coronavirus, but it's still thousands and thousands of people died. But what happened is interesting, as I described these events. When Barack Obama came to Mexico City, swine flu was there, started there, as if he brought it there. When he moved to United States and started to visit cities across the United States, swine flu as if followed him. So that's kind of creates an impression maybe somebody else is behind these crimes. Now in part 5, this is exactly what I analyzed. I asked the question, okay, who could be behind these strange murders, suicide murders, crimes, deaths, plane crashes, bus crashes, and other events, and bio wars as well, with biological wars or bacteriological viral wars. And I provided 4, but it was probably 5 cases of suicide murders that took place in 2005-2006, in the period of about 1 year, where again, like 5 times it happened, and the suicide murder, somebody killed other people, most commonly family members, sometimes actually police officers were killed, 2 of them, and then these people killed themselves. So, and what I discovered that it was a kind of very unusual event, where it was online exhibition about Gulag labor camps organized in this tiny Fairfax County, which I looked like recently, only 1 million of population, and in the news we write that it's actually even homicide cases are extremely rare in this place, and all of a sudden there are like 5 suicide murders took place. And so Gulag history exhibition took place exactly in the same location, and then like make me think, okay, could it be so that maybe Gulag people who organized Gulag labor camps, and this was of course organized by KGB, who could be behind these suicide murders in 2005-2006. Now, so that was kind of led me kind of from a different direction to the same conclusion, because I knew these people personally, and I explained like how I got involved in this kind of activities of KGB, because they brainwash people, they make them zombies, and they can order them to commit any type of crimes. People can kill others, kill themselves, give them the money, for example, if they have any, and so on. Now, in part 6 of the previous video, again, I explained what qualities do we target and why. Okay, and then in part 7, I talk about who can be spared and why. And so in this part, I'm going to provide kind of more cases, more details related to these crimes, to these specific topics. But I also plan to do another video, because probably this video would be maybe around 1 hour or more even, with new parts related to keystones of structures of national security organizations, how they work, how they react to these Gulag KGB crimes, and another part, how do secret agents deal with targets, like, because the crimes looks like committed, for example, in this case against me, but I knew many other people against whom such crimes were committed. So they were again against people, against movements, against something which we don't like or hate. So I also going to provide in the next video 3 in this kind of series about Gulag KGB crimes, my personal experiences, and also talk about how secret agents are they able, or would they be able, to find this mafia. So this is the structure and the overview, and so in today's video I'm going to provide more cases which somehow either escaped my attention, or I discovered them relatively recently just by looking like, okay, what else is going on in the world when I, for example, teach like some Skype student, or do something else like some training with assistants, or I just travel, or something happened in my life, and then there is a sudden kind of, looks like weird thing, like crime, big crime, which relates to something which took place in my life. So first of all, I'm going to start with one quite big massacre which took place in California, and in 2011. So, and that relates to actually again my Buteyko-related activities, because I have this YouTube channel for many years, and what happened on this YouTube channel, I had many video uploads, and I have uploads, for example, in 2011 on October 4, October 6, and October 7. And here I'm going to provide you snapshots of these very old videos, like you can imagine, like about 10 years old. And you can see here is a nice mountain, and you can see sea actually. So, and the video was done because I have reservation. I can give you also a snapshot of my reservation. I was staying in Hosteling International at Point Montara. And Point Montara, it's a place which is several tens kilometers, I think, or several tens miles from San Francisco area. And so I have reservation here from August, September 2011 when I stayed there. So I made these videos there, and you can see again the scenery, the kind of background which I had on this video. So the video was done outdoors. I was kind of hidden behind the building, although there was wind, but because of the building there was less wind, and so it was possible to create reasonably good audio quality. And videos were uploaded on October 4, 6 and 7. So I have again these snapshots of these videos. And a week later after the video upload, this is a snapshot from Wikipedia, 2011 Seal Beach shooting. Okay, so what happens during this Seal Beach shooting? A mass shooting occurred on October 12th. Okay, October 12th, and again my video uploads were October 4, 6 and 7 of 2011. So about a week later, at the Salon Meritage hair salon in Seal Beach, California, 8 people inside the salon and 1 outside were killed, were shot, and only 1 victim survived. It was the deadliest mass shooting in Orange County history. Okay, and if we look at the map on Google Maps, you can see that both places are located on east coast of California. That's one kind of thing. And another thing, actually, here, Salon Massacre, if I can provide you with more snapshots of images of videos that I made at this time, let's say like 12, 11, 10, 9 years ago, you can see that actually my hairs for this, what you can see again, that on these videos I actually had, my hairs were shorter than usual, than 12 years ago, 11 years ago and so obviously I had a haircut done. And so the shooting took place in, again, like a few hundred kilometers in the same California, on the east coast again, close to the sea, ocean, Pacific Ocean. And that kind of, again, only one event, but again, when you have dozens of such events, you can kind of get a picture like something strange is going on. It cannot be just a pure coincidence. Okay. Here, I'm going now to talk about another case. I had I was contacted by one of my very old friends who was like about professional skier, even though he studied also in the Moscow State University. And so I had with him conversations, exchange on business Facebook in November 2019, and he wanted to get rid of his asthma, got some lessons, he wanted to get some lessons from me. And it was November 2019, and then you see like here I can provide you like snapshot of one of our exchange messages. And then there's like a strange event, an explosion took place in ski resort in Poland, and so many people were killed. So here I gave you a snapshot from news talking about this explosion, and you can look at the date, that was 4th of December 2019. So, now another event, I had a Skype student from Ontario, Canada, and this person got Skype classes from me very recently. It was actually March 2021. Class actually on March 16, 2021. I think this is a snapshot of the image showing that we actually had this class for about 1 hour. We met online on 16 March, on the same day, in Ontario, but in California, because Ontario is a province in Canada. But there is a city, Ontario, in California, and firework explosion took place on exactly the same date, 16th of March 2021. In California, 2 people were killed, more than 3 million in damages. Many people moved from their houses, of course a lot of damage produced. And again, looks like a coincidence unless you have many cases like this, and then you start to think that actually somebody is organizing all these crimes. So now finishing with this kind of Buteyko-related or health promotion related events, because all these cases which I described, these 3 new cases which I described in these cases, they relate to promotion teaching of the Buteyko method. But I'm going also to provide cases related to my just traveling, from one place to another. So I'm going now to talk about one case which took place in Niagara Hostel, because I stayed on 14th of July 2014 in Niagara Falls, again Hosteling International Hostel. And when I arrived to this hostel, I found that the owner of the hostel, in this case actually the hostel, the person, she lived like literally in the adjacent house, which is very convenient to manage the hostel, the place, because visitors come, you need to help the visitors, like to make them settle in a new place and so on. So she was in tears when I came. I just arrived and she's in tears. And so I made reservation, I had plans of course to go there. And I asked, okay, why, what happened? And not actually she, but was some other staff member, because she was like very in a state of huge distress, like you could really see a person like being in such sorrowful state. Another person like from the management, from the personnel of who deal in reception with visitors, a woman explained to me that actually her brother was killed 1 or 2 days ago, just I think just 1 day ago, and he was fishing on a boat on Ontario Lake, and some other boat killed on full speed, hit his boat, and he was instantaneously killed. Again, strange coincidence took place. I traveled to this place and somebody killed the brother, the close relative of the manager of the hostel. Okay, that's one kind of event, which again, if somebody really wants, I can provide details. I have kind of where I stayed, and that can be also verified, and that this event took place. Now, I've heard about 2016, and many people, especially from Germany, heard about these events as well. Berlin truck attack, and it took place on 19th of December, 2016. And that is a snapshot again from Wikipedia. A truck was deliberately driven into the Christmas market next to the Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church at Breitscheidplatz in Berlin, leaving 12 people dead and 58 others injured. I did not know actually where I was at this time. I heard about the event sometime later. So I look exactly where I was at this time, and then what I discovered is that actually on 18th of December, that means just 1 day before these truck attacks, I had reservation and I stayed. And if you look on the map, actually Charlottenburg and Berlin, this place where attack took place, we are not so far away. We are actually both on the east part of the Berlin city. But what is even more, and here again I cannot be 100% sure that it was the case, because on one of these trips to this hostel where I stayed, I think 3 or 4 times during this year, I had a trip to Berlin Zoo. And it was actually very possible, because I remember it was cold weather, that it was actually in December. And if you look at the Berlin Zoo location, Berlin Zoo actually located probably somewhere around 200 or 300 meters from the place where this attack took place. So a day before, of course, I was looking on maps how I can get to Berlin Zoo, when they open, what are the opening hours, look at the map, because I was curious actually most of all to see life of primates, apes, great apes especially, and especially chimpanzees, because we actually have quite many chimpanzees there. It was I plan to make actually videos about human relationships and to provide a course for education, for educational purposes in this area in the near future. But what happened again is that it's actually possible that attack took place exactly at the time when I was just actually few hundred meters from this place. But in any case, I for certain, for sure, stayed in the hostel that was again in the east part of Berlin. I'm going to provide now another event, and this event is called Toronto van attacks. So on April 11, 2018, when I was in Toronto, I got a message from LinkedIn, and it was some Russian girl, relatively young, who was in Toronto at this time, who worked. And the reason she contacted me and somehow found me was that actually she was from my hometown. Decided to meet with her just to help, to discuss like what is going on, like, just to meet like this girl. And we met with her. I'm going to provide here the image. See, from our LinkedIn messages. She used LinkedIn to send me messages. I was replying her there. 3 p.m. at Bloor and Young train station, and I give you specific instructions because it's quite big intersection. Bloor and Young, and for those who know Toronto know that this is actually the two biggest streets which form two main subway lines. And we met with her at 3 p.m. on Bloor and Young. Okay, so what happened later? On April 23, so you can see it's 12 days later, the Toronto van attack took place. And 8 women and 2 men were killed. So it was a vehicle ramming attack that occurred on April 23 when a rented van, so somebody rented a van, was driven along Yonge Street. Okay, on the same street in Toronto. See, the attack took place, 10 people were killed, and women were specifically targeted. So I met with a young girl, with a woman, and so women were targeted in this attack. And the attack took place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, basically on the same street 12 days later. Okay. Again, like one event may say nothing, but okay, I accidentally started to discover and make connection years ago, and then like, okay, more events, let me maybe make a story, maybe it can help people to see, maybe we can even find who organized, because these massacres, shootings and so on, they are not accidental, and actually people whom we put in prison or whom police sometimes kill, you know, we say, oh, we killed the shooter. No, actually we did not solve anything. Crime's still going on, and the same people still make zombies and order them to kill others, sometimes kill themselves, sometimes maybe we are just disposable, we are useless. Now, so let me go to the next event about this type of kind of occurrences. In 2020, I was again in Stuttgart in the same hostel where I stayed before. Okay, and just walking on the street because I went shopping, and we had, I think, Aldi or Lidl, just a few hundred meters on the same street where this A&O Hotel and Hostel in Stuttgart is located, and that is close to the main train station, just maybe 2-3 kilometers. And I walk there, and just 100 meters from the hostel, I see a small memorial, actually some flowers, and I see that like it actually looks like some people died there. And I look at the photos, and there are like young couple, around 25-30 years old, and it says Jacques and Ricardo. I was like surprised because I visited this place years ago, and that did not, that memorial was not there, so it appeared recently. Okay, so I wrote the Jacques and Ricardo, I wrote the date, and I went online, and I started to look, okay, about this event, and I quickly discovered it even in news in English that it was a Jaguar attack, as we call it, which took place on March 6, 2019. Okay, March 6, 2019. Okay, I was already in the hotel and hostel and A&O at this time. I was started to look, okay, where I was, what I was doing on March 6, 2019, like I look on my whereabouts and I discovered actually on March 2 and on March 3 I had a reservation in the same hostel in Berlin, about which I was just talking about, like about Berlin van attacks. Happy-go-lucky hotel and hostel. And okay, I look more closely at the address. So this event here took place 2-3 days later after I stayed in a hostel in Berlin. But I look at the address and actually Go Lucky Hotel and Hostel address is Stuttgarter Platz 17. And the crime took place in Stuttgarter Hostel, where else I stayed before. So that's kind of, again, just one event which provides kind of some thinking, okay, what a strange coincidence again took place. Okay, let me give another case. So I stayed actually in a place which is called Dom y Ziel. And I stayed from 25 to 27 January. But of course the booking was done very long time in advance. I actually found my email. So actually I got booking done on 8th of January 2020. So okay, so I had booking again January 8th, and I stayed many, of course I had to book in Germany in advance because not so many places available, and I wanted to stay 1-2 days to visit Juergen, to have discussions with him, and then later fly back to Mallorca, where I was at the time. So one day before my arrival and check-in in this place, which has again a little bit strange name, you see, Dom y Ziel, kind of 3 different words. There was a shooting on 24 January 2020. 6 people were killed and 2 others were wounded in a mass shooting at Rottenmann, Germany. See, like, strange, like again 3 words, because in Germany, if you feel like there could be places which have like maybe 2, 3, or even 4 words, you know, like some strange names a little bit, because most of the places, you know, like all biggest cities in Germany, we don't have even double names. We have like a single name, you know, if you think about any large city in Germany. And that was like again like kind of strange, you see, like kind of weird thing. And one suspect was arrested after reporting himself to the police. So what is it, like 1 day difference? And if we look at the distance, okay, here I can provide you a snapshot again between the place where I stayed, Dom y Ziel, and Rottenmann. So you can see actually it's like around only 100 kilometers. So we are both located kind of southeast Germany. You can see Mannheim, Stuttgart on the map. So again, like kind of strange, quite big shooting took place. So, and here again, verifiable event, because I stayed in this place and there is kind of known that this shooting took place, and we say, oh, the shooting was solved, and those who organized, like who are responsible for the crime, they are caught. So we now may have more and more doubts about this part. Now I'm going to provide now events which even way older. So in the year 2000 actually, in June, I stayed in the area of Margate, Ramsgate. This is Kent in the UK, United Kingdom. Not so far away from London, maybe, I don't know, 100, 200 kilometers from London. And because of my political asylum. But what happens in this time in 2000, in June, I had a telephone call to my mother. Okay, and mothers, okay, my mother, as nearly all mothers are, extremely caring, and she started to ask, like, you are like somewhere far away, and like, okay, well, what did you eat today? Like, did you have enough milk? Do we feed you like well enough? And I said, oh, well, it's like mothers, you know, and well, we had like tomato salad, and I have cooked cauliflower, well cooked chicken, and it was like good meal, and of course bread butter is like unlimited supply. So okay, I mentioned just a few things in a telephone conversation with my mother. In this again, June 2006, when I was in Margate, Ramsgate area. In 1-2 weeks in the news, it was a huge news that 58 dead Chinese illegal immigrants was found in Dover, the UK, and also Kent. So if we look on the map, we can see that actually Dover and Margate, Ramsgate area, we are located like what, like I think like about 40 kilometers. So like we're very, very close. We are both in Kent in the UK. And you see, I applied like for political asylum and was talking to my mother on a phone, like, oh, she was like, what did you eat? And I said, oh, it was like tomato salad and other things. And a truck with tomatoes was used. And so these Chinese illegal immigrants, they came illegally to the UK from France. No, they have like this channel connection on the sea. And the driver of the truck closed the vent, which is used for air exchange. So he basically suffocated these people, and two who were closer to the doors, so like they had some tiny holes where fresh air could go in. Only these two survived. And you can, like, why would people do such crazy things? Because in news they reported that they paid each one somewhere around like 20,000 US dollars or 20,000 pounds for that. So in total, like, they paid more than 1 million. And the driver, of course, got probably most of this money, like, I don't know, 500,000 easily. Very possible, because there is, you say, oh, there was like a criminal ring of smugglers, you know, who would take like illegal immigrants from China and they would get to the UK. It's like, does not make any sense. Why the driver, for whom like was all about money, would close the van so that like 3 days later there are like the dead people there. And of course he went to prison for this crime, for smuggling. And again, like, very strange word crime, but if you kind of make another assumption that maybe somebody else behind these crimes, maybe this Dutch driver was like kind of just a zombie, you know, the one who could be manipulated into doing something which was not in his real nature, like in his previous life, like what he was thinking about life and doing. So just one more event, and so we can see that here again, like, kind of one more weird coincidence took place. And the reason why these crimes started to started to appear and existed even in 1990s, I provided such examples in the previous video, was that I informed officials of many countries, of more than 30 different countries, like embassies, consulates, about this KGB technique, KGB method, and people who were actually doing this brainwashing, like producing of zombies in order to get money, get people to do them whatever they wanted, because these people again can kill others, kill themselves, can kill their relatives, do whatever is ordered to them. So, and that was because I was witness of the crime which took place again within my family. In this next part, I want to talk about some additional cases which would be harder for you to verify in a way that I can't provide like exact bookings or like some airline tickets as I did for other crimes, or maybe the connection kind of was very delayed, like the crime took place not immediately, not close to me, but sometime later. So I want to speak now about a very famous event, like probably nearly all people heard about that. In 2015, on 24th of March, there was a plane crash known as Germanwings plane crash. So we can read from Wikipedia that on 24 March 2015, the aircraft, an Airbus A320-2011, crashed 100 kilometers northwest of Nice in the French Alps. All 144 people died. So, and was a scheduled international passenger flight from Barcelona in Spain to Düsseldorf airport in Germany. So how do I know that that crime could relate to my life? Well, because it's like interesting thing took place in Germany immediately after this crash, because at this time I was in Germany and I traveled around Germany many times in following months and this year as well. What I found interesting during my trips, so most trips I used Flixbus and so traveling on buses, that all of a sudden, like when I travel on a bus, and many trips were many hours long, so along different parts of Germany, and some were international trips as well, through Germany, crossing Germany, I would see a bridge. And you can see, of course, a lot of bridges when there is a highway. So in order to cross it, in Germany, we would really build tunnels. So usually there is highway, we would build a bridge for farmers, for local people, for small villages, communities. So they're like smaller kind of roads, because buses, when they go between cities, we usually use highways, at least 2 lanes in one direction, 2 lanes in the opposite direction. And so what I saw on those bridges exactly on 2015, and exactly after this Germanwings crash, because I did not see that before. I traveled like for many times before that, tens of times. I had like some of the years I could count. I could have like 50, 70, 100 trips in 1 year on a bus. Like in Germany, it was a lot of trips, and I would see people standing on top of the bridge. Okay, go and like see like whatever, 2, 3, 5 people standing on the bridge. Then I go like maybe 10, 20 minutes later, sometimes on the same trip, again people standing like watching like. So what is going on? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, especially I think in video number 3, because that relates a lot to something that I called guilt games. Guilt games, kind of. You're supposed to feel guilty about these particular events. And so I looked in my my reservations, and I found that I actually had also a flight from Spain to Germany. So you can see kind of similar flight just about 4 or 5 months before this Germanwings flight. So I can actually provide you with this reservation, and so 4 or 5 months before, like 4.5 months before this Germanwings crash, I had a flight also from Spain and also to Germany, but my flight was to Bremen. So is a connection that's again like, if somebody does not know what I had like experience with this like kind of people watching me like from bridges, and I pass inside the bus, probably connection like would be weak. But see, like secret agents, we know probably 10 times more, maybe many more other events which I even don't suspect about, don't know about. First of all, a lot of smaller crimes could take place, and there would be nothing in international news, nothing that I would even read or pay attention to. And I'm not a detective again, like I have so many other things to do in my life. So so there is a connection, in my view, judging by again like by experience I had, but kind of in terms of time-wise, you can see like it like took like 4 months to organize this crime. But it makes sense, because I don't think we have like a lot of zombies who are pilots left, because of course secret agents, national security organizations, and like people who kind of control pilots and so on. We do some work to keep them safe, to prevent this type of things from occurrence, from being from taking place again. So that's one of the events, and of course it was a very large event. But what I want to kind of pay attention to, and that's what I'm going to discuss later, about that like kind of the secret agents from German national security, it's called BND in Germany, had an opinion that I'm somehow responsible for these people being killed in this plane crash, where it's known that actually what happens, I don't know, most people probably have heard about this event. So a second pilot went to the toilet, and the remaining pilot locked the door and took the plane, and the plane was flying all the way vertically down. The guy came back, was like banging into the door, opened for God's sake, and like banging into the door. And of course, the one who committed the crime looks like he did not respond. He just was doing what he was ordered to do. So that's a crime which, again, like with a relatively weak connection with my life, but it is possible that, again, like secret agents, we could know even some other details which we don't know, for example. Very possible, because often like certain details of these crimes are changed, as I already described in video 1, or can be completely omitted. Sometimes like black boxes, or with like audio tapes, we could be hidden, or we say we are damaged, or we kind of say, oh, we don't show it to the public. So there are kind of various other games which are going on with this type of crimes. Now I want to provide another example of quite large massacre shooting, which also took place in the United States, as most of them are, which has like a relatively weak connection. So I had many trainings with assistants where I invite some people because I make videos, for example, like this, and sometimes I don't have people who can even like do basic editing, to write description, to upload the video on YouTube, to embed it on the website. Occasionally, like right now, for example, I probably would do it myself. But sometimes I have people, and that makes it much easier to produce many more videos on many topics and upload like videos, maybe 2-3 videos even in a week, sometimes even more than that, which I did many times. So what happens with me, I had one of my trainings and related to Buteyko method, of course, a promotion of this channel, and training started on 21 of June in 2016 in Belgrade, Serbia. And I made some announcement in various like kind of platforms on Craigslist and so on. And I got 2 people who had very good English, and one had native English, one from the UK, another one from the Netherlands, both males, whom I invited to this training. So you can see here again that our training started on 21 June, and we were 3 people from 3 different countries. So you can imagine it took like long time for us to coordinate like our whereabouts, locations, tickets, where we are going to stay. So I came probably first to the place, and we joined like some days later. But tickets, reservations, other things were done way many days before, as well as email discussions. So and you can infer from previous cases that again somebody was snooping after our email exchanges, so after my private emails to these people. So what took place at this time was an event which is known as Orlando nightclub shooting. And that is a snapshot from Wikipedia. So what we see here, again, our training started on 21 of June 2016, but again, as I already mentioned, even 2-3 weeks before this event, we already had email exchanges, buying tickets, and like kind of figuring out all these logistic and details related to, again, 3 people walking together in Belgrade in Serbia. So on June 12th, so you can see here like what, like 9 days? Yeah, 9 days before our training started. Omar Matin, a 29-year-old security guard, killed 49 people and wounded 53 more in a mass shooting inside Pulse, Florida, United States. At the time it was a very big event. So you can see like actually it's just a few days difference between these events. And it was a gay club, so there could be again some kind of connection. You see, if those people who organized these events knew that maybe I could meet like some, or I met some females, they would organize attacks related to females, killing like Toronto van attacks, which I just described in this video. And here it was gay club massacre. And I was actually working with 2 males together during this training. So there is again kind of, you see, like strange thing going on. When again you have many events like this, it's kind of getting easier to see, to analyze that there is actually indeed some connection here too. Although again we had training in Serbia, and the event, this shooting took place in Florida in the United States. Now I want to describe another attacks which took place this time in Canada. And so what took place, it was like just like 2020, last year. And in April 2020, I was still in Croatia and doing some work and going fishing. And what I did, I was thinking about my plans, that maybe I could go to Canada, and I was started to actually investigate practically, like. So what happens later, that just 2 or 3 days later, because I was looking, going, opening all these web pages on my MacBook and searching and comparing and thinking what, which cities I could go, how I would fly, and so on, just like practically all these details. And again, 2 or 3 days later, in the news, there is this event which took place on April 18, 19, 2020, and that's from Wikipedia. Gabriel Wortman committed multiple shootings and set fires at 16 locations in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia. This is where actually, exactly where I was looking. Killing 22 people and injuring 3 others before he was shot and killed by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He was actually dressed as a RCMP cop, like a policeman, and he had a car which was like looks like exactly like a RCMP or police car. So that was an event, and he was like a kind of fake policeman. Strange thing, somebody like dressed up. We had many things like this before, all type of shootings and killings. Like for example, in Norway, one male was dressed up like a policeman, killed like 40, 50 people or more on an island. Maybe some people remember this event. The other like small events when somebody would dress up like FedEx, federal FedEx, like postal service, or somebody would be dressed up as Santa Claus, some other like dress up kind of things, like somebody, as if somebody is trying to kind of do something else in addition to shooting, because now we know that these events were organized. And I'm going to talk a bit later probably about this kind of symbolistic part which secret agents adore. It's like a kind of a golden standard I discovered around the world among secret agents, like this kind of symbolism, like apistic part of human mind, human thinking, which is of extreme significance in national security organizations, in video number 3. So, but for now, that would be it about this Nova Scotia shooting, which was of course a huge event and a very devastating event for so many families, for so many people. Now, I want to speak about one more event which could not be verified, and you can just trust my word that that was indeed that took place. Why? Because I can provide evidence. So what happens with me, this like kind of a strange event which took place in, again, Serbia, near Belgrade. It was, I don't remember the exact date, but it was either August 1 or 2. Why? Because I think 2 or 3 days later, that was how it took place. The big event took place, and it was in all international news, like, and so on. So what took place with me was following. On August 1 or 2, I was fishing near Belgrade, some 10 kilometers from Belgrade. We have like nice kind of relatively plain area with small canals, some small rivers. And what I saw with my eyes kind of caught my attention and imagination. Why? Because it was really unusual for me to see. So I was going to some place, again, river, canal, and I saw a place, kind of a storage place for, look like maybe so for some like agricultural purposes. And I went from the behind of the building, and the door was totally open, and I looked, there were big bags standing, like probably about 1 by 1 meter, size, pretty heavy bags, and there are like hundreds of them. And it says ammonium nitrate. Okay, ammonium nitrate. I was looking at it. That's interesting. Why? Because long ago, I actually did some experiments, and I've already described, like I did experiments in Finland, where I had a job in Finland, in the area of high pressure physics. And so in the area that I work, we actually had an explosive chamber, as well as in the Moscow State University, where I worked, because I worked in the Moscow State University in the laboratory of explosive methods and shock wave processes. so explosive methods and shockwave. So how to use like explosives for peaceful applications. And I knew about ammonium nitrate. Why? Because I use it in my own experiments. It's explosive material, it's known. And it's only weak explosive material. Why? Because for my applications and like studying again thousands of research papers in this area, and I had my own publications, I knew that actually this material is relatively weak, but it's possible to detonate it using high explosive or using some other methods. So, because I worked again with this material myself, with my hands, and the publication that I had actually, that maybe I can put a snapshot here of the publication, it actually talks about this explosively compacted, amorphous material. And so I used two explosives for these particular experiments, and one of them was exactly the same ammonium nitrate. So I knew that it's possible to detonate this explosive only by special means, or let's say if you just like, let's say if you start, if there is a fire, they probably would not explode. So, but if you take a gun and shoot into the ammonium nitrate back, it would not detonate. But using other not so complex techniques, it's possible to detonate. And I got these ideas, like it's so dangerous to keep so huge mass. It was like many tons. Hard to say, 50 tons, 100 tons, maybe more. So I look at this like very large area where a lot of these ammonium nitrate bags located. And I made quick calculations, because this is like what I did in the past, like what is going to happen, I would just thought, like theoretically, if this thing now explodes, like for whatever reasons. And I think that would probably a kind of a crater, a hole, maybe 30, maybe 50 meters deep, you can imagine, probably about like 100 meters or more in diameter, so maybe 150 meters in diameter, would be a huge hole. And also quite busy road, country road, but with local buses going there, like somewhere, I would say probably about 50, 70 meters from this place, less than 100 meters for sure. And in the bus, of course, could be what, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20, 30 people, maybe more people if the bus like nearly full. And I thought also about myself, okay, like I'm here, my car is like 15, 20 meters from this place, and let's say I sit in the car and this thing, like the whole thing detonates. What is going to happen with me? Well, knowing how huge is the mass, even though it's weak explosive, I realized that like what would happen with me was easy to imagine. If you imagine a coffee cup and there is like a, let's say a fly or like a bee, like kind of small insect inside, and you take this coffee cup and from paper cup, for coffee drinking, and you smash it like this with two hands, that's exactly what would happen with me in this car. So the car, of course, would fly out, I don't know, some maybe hundreds of meters away, and I don't know if we would find like maybe traces of me later. So it's like crazy. I feel like, what like people, what we are doing, like it's and there is like a road just next to it. Like, I thought later, like kind of after, so okay, this event took place, and all these thoughts like going on in my head, I did not speak them out, but I already explained the secret agents actually, they have this software which can see what you think about. And for me it was like all these thoughts about my past experiments and explosives and what is going to happen, like oh gosh, like it's like kind of really unusual experience took place. So it was August 1 or 2nd, or August 2nd in 2020, and 2 or 3 days later, okay, I was staying in some place where I rented again like hotel, small hotel, and I was walking in common area, and we had like huge TV and showing the news, and the news show a rocket flying, and the rocket hits some kind of industrial storage area, and there is a huge explosion. And that was, that became known as a 2020 Beirut explosion, during which at least 204 people died, 7,500 people injured. And they estimate that the damage was somewhere around 15 billion US dollars, 15 billion US dollars in property, and estimated that 300,000 people, that's 300,000 people, huge city, people became homeless. You can imagine, like, huge, of course, event was all over international news showing this rocket hitting the place and this explosion. And I got like various type of kind of thoughts in my mind, like, oh, shoot, like, ammonium nitrate, again, like exactly the same thing which I met first time in my life, like seeing such a big storage of ammonium nitrate without any protection. I could go actually inside this place, and there's nobody watching, no signs even, don't enter, you know, like something like nothing. And so that for me was kind of a big event which produces many other thoughts, like, oh gosh. And we were storing in Beirut this huge amount, like just next to, like, the same as in Serbia I met during this event. Probably, well, in Serbia it was more kind of, I would say, it's hard to tell. In average, probably would be few or several people dead because there are small other buildings nearby. If this particular storage place became a source of like an explosion. But of course in Beirut it was a densely populated area. But I was thinking, okay, why, like, how it is possible? Why take place? Like, why we store like this? And that's another big story. I would not go into this right now, but I believe it's a lot related to who organize this type of storages and who should be taken care, because think about, like, logically about life, how life goes, because there are some other kind of factors which people rarely discuss, and I believe they are so important. Imagine a household in which rules were like about dirtiness, cleanness, where people store like dangerous things or the dirty boots and so on, would be ruled by males. What is going to happen in this household? And I believe that's exactly the case, because males by nature, it's a lot of research and from practical life, any landlord knows, and I met so many landlords who would not have any males at all rented their rooms because we just want females. We know there is a drastic difference in their cleanness and other related factors. So I believe it's kind of reflected too, because it was only males who could organize storage of such like dangerous things. Now, I want to add a little bit to part 4. I spoke about who else are targeted, and I was talking about for a lot of people who promote nudity therapy, I mentioned in the previous video, and people who were teaching IHHT, intermittent hypoxic training, the therapy which I described in several videos which were done during 2020. So I believe there's also actually large group of people who were targeted, maybe are still targeted, the people who promote low carb or ketogenic diets. And it is very possible that one of the events I described, that in a period of about 2 months, June, July 2015, 8 people, alternative health doctors, were killed in Florida. This event took some, was noticed and took again some attention in alternative health circles, and there were like several websites who published, and I also like made a link, made a web page on my stop007.net about this event. Why? Because it looked like very strange, like why all of a sudden 8 people killed in a period of about 2 months, June, July 2015, in one again state of Florida. But Florida has been known for many years as a kind of one of the key centers where this particular movement, low carb and ketogenic communities started to grow, and there are so many health therapists, doctors, nurses now and so on, hundreds and hundreds of them who apply this technique. It's probably related, there could be a lot of other details how these murders were committed and so on, which could shed more light on these particular events, but I want just to mention it. I don't have time again to investigate it, like it's mind-boggling, all these like murders and so on to investigate, to make connections with. So I just mentioned here that there could be also a group of people apart from PKD, which I mentioned before. Now, PKD or palliomedicine doctors, who I believe get also a lot of kind of negative attention from this Gulag KGB mafia, and that's why kind of they may have certain challenges, certain obstacles artificially created to them by local Hungarian, in addition, secret agents. Now, it's possible, also I heard various stories about people who use orgonia therapy. So, especially those who built orgonia accumulators, developed by Wilhelm Reich, so German. And this therapy kind of requires creation of certain devices, how to improve your own health and help, of course, help of other people. It is also possible that people who teach and promote Rife therapy using frequencies, using various devices, could be also targeted. So hard to say, I did not investigate. Again, I don't have much information to tell about that, but it's again very possible, because what I discovered again from many various areas, that anything that is natural or that works, that is useful for people, can be targeted, and commonly is targeted by this Gulag KGB mafia. I also described a variety of cases related to Buteyko, such as Buteyko method, but also again other therapies such as there is a third briefing therapy in Russia. So in Russia, known for Buteyko method, number one, most common was, well, it used to be most popular now, Frolov device, and doctors who use the Frolov device by numbers and by popularity are certainly higher in Russia. That's another therapy which I believe is targeted by this Gulag KGB mafia. Plus, there was a third briefing technique that was developed by Strelnikova. So Strelnikova briefing gymnastic. Why it is so? Because again, it's like looking at her death, what took place with her. She was hit by a motorcycle and died instantaneously due to this motorcycle hit. So again, like I don't have like solid proofs to say, oh, that was the person that was who organized him and so on, because it's just like kind of so complex, difficult, and that those events took place many decades ago. So I mentioned before Princess Diana's death after Prince Charles was a participant and the person who opened Hale Clinic, where the Buteyko method was taught by Alexander Stalmatsky. So Princess Diana was, I believe, killed by her driver, who committed like suicide murder, basically killing himself and her by driving the car at high speed and like hitting a concrete wall. Here I want to talk about plane crash in which Osceola police chief Greg Graham died in 2020. Okay. Here is a snapshot of news, and he was known just like a kind of unusual police chief, liked by people, so, and popular probably among policemen, so he was like kind of a leader in his field. So all of a sudden died in a plane crash. Okay, another plane crash. In 2020, Calabasas helicopter crash in which Kobe Bryant, a very famous basketball player, who was probably at the time, I don't know, maybe the #1 player in the world, of course in NBA, playing for Los Angeles Lakers. And we may think, okay, why Kobe Bryant could be targeted? Well, he was unusual for one reason. He actually had a fiancée, and he publicly declared having no sex before marriage. Now, I want to speak about killing which took place again just very recently, because I get like news and just put this one of the news again. There is a relatively small like shooting took place, but because we discussed many other bigger ones, but 3 people were killed. But in this shooting, it was interesting that they killed a very kind of smart person, brilliant student from China, and he was killed first, actually. So what we see in the news, Juran Fan, a 30-year-old PhD student from Beijing, China, was the first person shot in deadly rampage Saturday that began on Chicago's south side and ended in Evanston. So, strange, yeah? Like, he was the first one to be killed. Maybe he was actually just the main purpose of the crime, because all others just kind of maybe for some other kind of to distract attention, to say, oh, he was like mad, he was angry. And maybe if we think about like kind of, and yeah, we often say news later that this person was just angry and that's why he killed, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 50 or more people. Looks very strange, yeah, probably in terms of logic, because I don't know who is like not angry in a particular day at all. Could be some people, okay, if you take a month period of time or like 1 year, are there many people who would never get angry in this period of time? So do people need to like kill many others just because we're angry? No, of course not. So what took place here is like really kind of strange, and could be many other events we don't know even about, because this event looks like, you know, he killed somebody whom he did not know, some brilliant student from China. And sometimes what we do, we kill somebody else and kill themselves. And then people, you know, arrive and we can maybe shoot some, you know, CSI movie, crime scene investigation, as they call it. They are very popular in the United States, where people like try to investigate, see what is going on. But does it relate to the course of events at all? Because could it be so that the person who actually killed others just was ordered to kill by somebody else? There is some other behind him. And then, of course, all these things that we read in news, it's like kind of nonsense. It's rubbish, basically, because it does not tell the whole story at all. And what is worse, it creates conditions or situation when new crimes like this are going to happen. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in the next video. I'm going to also mention in this part whom we target as well, because that's something which I did not discuss at all in the video number 1, that we also target terrorists and criminals, those groups. Why? Because if we get one member of the group as a zombie, okay, using methods which I described partially in video number 1, then of course we can get the whole group relatively easily. You see, like a policeman, for example, or some state officials, they can get one member of the group, but how to make him talk, how make him, well, usually it's a male, to reveal other members of the group, what exactly they do. And if he is converted into a zombie, he gives all information. He can lead to the group, he can lead to everything, and so the whole group becomes a group of zombies. I believe right now that it is like, my opinion is like 99-100% certainty that the whole group, if you know about this African terrorist called Boko Haram, okay, these horrible, like totally monstrous crimes, like killing civilians, going to some schools, killing children, taking like 100, 200 young girls as sex slaves to serve them somewhere in Africa, like we are, I think in part of Nigeria, like in those areas. And I think in 4 different countries in Africa where we are located. And why they would do that? Well, if they are like converted into zombies, they are just the group who follows the instructions of somebody else who is, again, like would be in a totally different country. And this, I believe, the people who are from this Gulag KGB community. Okay, very possible that Mexican groups, because now Mexico probably is one of the worst, maybe the single worst country in the world in terms of worsening of terrorism and rise of these criminal groups. So just very recently I got this news. So we have a news about this event, and this news, you can see here from a snapshot, appeared 9 days later after it really took place, 9 days later on Mexican newsdaily.com. So we got this event in which they describe the following. 13 people were killed by an ambush attack. Okay, who were these people? Well, they are all from the state officials. 8 police officers, imagine 8 police officers are killed, plus 5 people from Attorney General Office of Mexico. So zero information for many days in all international news. 9 days later, look exactly what we say, on Saturday. People have better mood, yeah, people have like better emotions. So that's where Mexico is right now. We even hide this information from the own country, from international authorities, because it's like, and there is virtually nothing in international news, because I subscribe to Google Alerts, and I want to see information about massacres and shootings. And that was not there for many days. And it was actually took 9 days before any news in English appeared about this event. 13 state officials, including 8 police officers, and 5 people from Attorney General Office were ambushed and killed in Mexico. It's, my opinion actually is that actually somebody ordered public media to keep it, you know, under the carpet, you know, to stay silent. And that's really, that tells us about, it's like it's next stage of the situation when this like mafia not only able to commit crimes, but now they commit crimes to the degree that people who actually make news, they delay, postpone, or eliminate this news even about the existence of crimes. So Mexico actually, you see, it's going on past stage 2, because let's say in the US around like talking about all these crimes which I described, let's say many in Germany and so on, in Canada, these news are immediately there at least. Okay? And that creates a whole situation which is very different from what is currently present in Mexico. Now, in next kind of section, small section, I want to give maybe some even like general conclusion about all these many crimes, many world events, massacres, suicide massacres, plane crashes, helicopter crashes, and so on and so forth, where so much damage was done, explosions and so on, firework explosions and so on, where which could be separate threads, could be like separate topics for whole, I don't know, books for many people even to investigate. So what would be these like general conclusions? That all electronic communication that we have now on Earth is like rubbish, is garbage, you can call it, is fake. Why? Because somebody else snooped on that in order to organize worst crimes which are committed. Okay, that's one conclusion we can make. So there are billions of fooled people about safety of all these cell phones, emails, you know, Skype, Zoom communication, even again, as I discussed before, all type of credit card transactions, banking transactions, all that goes electronically is taken by the people who organize these crimes. Okay? Next one. Police people and detectives are all wrong. All these crimes, they are not solved, and there would be many more crimes until people start to tell truth about who is doing these crimes, who is behind these crimes, where these people are located. Because I believe, I'm certain, that FBI and other organizations, we can have a lot of information even to make like kind of, even some photos and other details. Because if you go on FBI Most Wanted, you won't find people who organize these crimes there. Currently, again, let's say FBI Most Wanted people. Okay. Next, we can say that mass media people, reporters, journalists, etc., from TV, newspapers, radio, and so on, are all wrong. Some of them lie, some of them are asked to lie. And you again know by whom now, because you know who again control public media now. Now, last conclusion what I want to make here, and I'm going to start next video with this part. Crimes are done for the government secret agents, for national security organizations, for those people who go to any office, to any even like ordinary person, and say we are most important in the world. We are the smartest. We are deal with most sensitive, most significant events, information, and so on.